Right now, at this exact moment, Russian military transport aircraft are landing at Tehran's Mehrabad Air Base, carrying components of the S-400 Triumph air defense system, the most advanced surface-to-air missile platform ever deployed to Iran. The Pentagon released a statement 60 minutes ago calling this transfer a red line violation that fundamentally alters the military balance in the Middle East. Iran's defense minister just posted on Telegram that the systems will be operational within 72 hours. This is not a rumor. This is not speculation. Multiple commercial satellite imaging companies have confirmed heavy Russian cargo aircraft on the ground in Tehran right now, and what's inside those planes could make Iran's airspace virtually impenetrable to American and Israeli strike aircraft. Let me walk you through exactly what happened and why the next 72 hours will determine whether we're heading toward the largest military confrontation in the Middle East since Operation Desert Storm. At 0400 hours UTC on Wednesday, March 4, 2026, Flight Radar 24 tracking data showed 4 Russian Antonov An-124 Ruslan heavy cargo aircraft departing from Khmeimim Air Base in Syria. These are not ordinary transport planes. The An-124 is one of the largest cargo aircraft in the world, capable of carrying a payload of 150,000 kilograms over a range of 4,500 kilometers. At 0730 hours, all 4 aircraft crossed into Iranian airspace over the Iraqi border near Qasr-e-Shirin. At 0815 hours, the first aircraft touched down at Mehrabad Air Base on the western edge of Tehran. Commercial satellite imagery from Planet Labs captured all 4 aircraft on the tarmac by 0900 hours. Iranian military vehicles surrounded the aircraft within minutes. By 1000 hours local time, Iranian Defense Minister Brigadier General Mohammad Reza Ashtiani posted imagery on his verified Telegram channel showing what he described as the first batch of S-400 components being offloaded under Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps supervision. At 1100 hours, Pentagon spokesman Major General Patrick Ryder released a statement describing the transfer as a significant escalation that crosses previously established red lines regarding advanced weapons transfers to Iran. At 1130 hours, Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant convened an emergency meeting of the IDF General Staff to assess the threat. At 1215 hours, President Trump posted on Truth Social that Russia and Iran will face consequences for what he called the most dangerous weapons transfer in the region's history. To understand why this matters, you need to understand what the S-400 Triumph actually is and why it represents a fundamental game changer for Iranian air defense capabilities. The S-400 is not just an upgrade over existing systems. This is a revolutionary integrated air defense platform that NATO considers one of the most capable anti-access area denial weapons ever developed. The S-400 can simultaneously track 300 targets and engage 36 of them at ranges up to 400 kilometers using the 40 N6E missile variant. That 400-kilometer range means an S-400 battery positioned in Tehran can detect and engage aircraft operating over Baghdad. It can cover the entire Persian Gulf. It can threaten Israeli jets operating in their own airspace over Tel Aviv. The system employs multiple missile types for different engagement envelopes. The 48 N6 missile engages targets at 250 kilometers. The 9M96E2 provides medium-range coverage at 120 kilometers with incredible maneuverability designed to intercept cruise missiles and precision-guided munitions. The system's engagement altitude extends from 5 meters above ground level to 30 kilometers altitude, meaning it can hit everything from low-flying cruise missiles to high-altitude strategic bombers. The S-400 uses the 91N6E battle management radar, which provides detection ranges exceeding 600 kilometers against fighter-sized targets. That means the system can see American F-35 stealth fighters taking off from Al Dhafra Air Base in the United Arab Emirates 350 kilometers away. Now, does that mean the S-400 can reliably track and engage stealth aircraft? That's the billion-dollar question. The system uses multiple radar bands including X-band, S-band, and L-band frequencies. American stealth technology is optimized primarily against X-band fire control radars. The S-400's lower-frequency radars can detect stealth aircraft at longer ranges, though targeting resolution decreases. Russian claims that the S-400 can defeat stealth technology remain unproven in actual combat. However, even forcing American stealth aircraft to operate at extended standoff ranges, to employ more complex penetration tactics, to expend electronic warfare resources, and to accept higher operational risk fundamentally changes the calculus for any potential strike on Iranian nuclear facilities. Here's what makes this transfer even more significant. Iran already operates several layers of air defense systems, but all of them have critical limitations. Iran purchased the S-300 PMU-2 system from Russia in 2016 after years of delays. The S-300 provides respectable capability with engagement ranges of 200 kilometers and the ability to engage ballistic missiles in their terminal phase. But the S-300 is a generation behind the S-400 in every meaningful metric. Detection range, engagement range, simultaneous engagement capacity, and resistance to electronic countermeasures all favor the S-400 by substantial margins. Iran also operates numerous legacy Soviet systems, including S-200 batteries dating to the 1970s, Tor M1 short-range systems, and various indigenous developments like the Bavar 373, which Iran claims matches S-300 capability. The reality is that Israel has repeatedly demonstrated the ability to penetrate Iranian airspace, strike targets, and egress without significant opposition. The presumed Israeli strike on Isfahan's nuclear facilities in January 2024 involved aircraft penetrating hundreds of kilometers into Iranian airspace. The assassination of Iranian nuclear scientists, the sabotage of enrichment facilities, and the precision strikes on weapons depots all occurred despite Iran's existing air defense network. The S-400 changes this equation fundamentally. Will it make Iranian airspace impenetrable? No. Will it force Israel and the United States to accept dramatically higher risk, employ more limited strike options, potentially accept aircraft losses, and fundamentally reconsider what targets can be struck and at what cost? Absolutely. And that's exactly why this transfer is happening right now. The strategic context here is essential to understanding why Russia is making this move at this specific moment. From Moscow's perspective, this transfer serves multiple objectives simultaneously. First, it deepens the Russia-Iran strategic partnership when both countries face sustained Western pressure. Russia needs Iran's support for operations in Syria and cooperation on oil markets. Iran needs Russian advanced weapons and diplomatic support at the UN Security Council. This is mutual necessity between two revisionist powers challenging American hegemony in their regions. Second, the transfer directly undermines American and Israeli military options against Iran's nuclear program. Multiple reports indicate the Trump administration is considering military strikes on Iranian enrichment facilities at Fordow and Natanz if diplomatic efforts fail. By deploying the S-400 to Tehran, Russia is essentially hardening Iranian nuclear facilities against attack, raising the cost of military action to potentially unacceptable levels. Third, this demonstrates Russian willingness to escalate despite Western warnings. The United States explicitly warned Russia that advanced air defense transfers to Iran would cross a red line. Russia is proceeding anyway, testing Western resolve. From Iran's perspective, the S-400 provides the strategic deterrent capability the Islamic Republic has sought for decades. According to Dr. Ariane Tabatabai, senior policy advisor at the Department of Defense, Iran has pursued advanced Russian air defense systems since the late 1990s because the regime views air defense as the critical vulnerability in its military posture. Iran cannot match American or Israeli air superiority. Iranian aircraft inventory consists primarily of aging American F-4 Phantoms and F-14 Tomcats acquired before 1979. Iran's strategy accepts air inferiority and emphasizes asymmetric capabilities, including ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, drone swarms, proxy forces, and cyber warfare. But these capabilities remain vulnerable to precision air strikes. Effective air defense imposes costs on adversary air operations and protects high-value targets. The S-400 provides this capability in a way no previous Iranian system could match. From the American perspective, this transfer represents a strategic nightmare. According to defense analysts quoted in today's Washington Post, the Pentagon has developed strike plans against Iranian nuclear facilities that assume American stealth aircraft can penetrate Iranian airspace and egress with acceptable risk. Those assumptions are now in question. The S-400 forces fundamental changes in operational planning. Strike packages would need significantly more aircraft, exposing more pilots to more risk. Suppression of enemy air defense missions would need to precede strikes, eliminating surprise. The uncomfortable reality is that S-400 deployment may make certain Iranian targets effectively unstrikable without accepting aircraft losses that would constitute political disasters for any administration. There are 3 scenarios for how this unfolds over the next 72 hours to 2 weeks, and the probability distribution is genuinely uncertain because we're in a situation where multiple actors have contradictory red lines and limited room for backing down. Scenario 1 is diplomatic containment with a probability I'd assess at 30%. In this scenario, intense diplomatic engagement occurs through back channels. Russia agrees to limit the deployment to defensive systems without offensive capability. The systems remain in storage rather than achieving operational deployment, and face-saving compromises emerge that allow all parties to claim they defended their core interests. For this scenario to materialize, several conditions must align. Russia would need to decide that the strategic benefits of the transfer are outweighed by the costs of further Western isolation and potential military confrontation. Iran would need to accept that provoking an immediate crisis serves neither the regime's survival interests nor its nuclear program advancement. The United States would need to craft a response that signals unacceptability without triggering immediate military confrontation. And all parties would need to find off-ramps that allow them to claim victory to domestic audiences while actually compromising on core positions. The challenge is that none of these conditions appear likely in the current environment. Trump has staked significant political capital on maximum pressure toward Iran and has repeatedly promised that Iran will never obtain nuclear weapons under his watch. Putin has demonstrated consistent willingness to escalate in Syria, Ukraine, and now Iran when he perceives Western weakness or division. Iranian hardliners see this as a moment of maximum leverage when American attention is divided across multiple global crises. Scenario 2 is limited American strike on S-400 positions before operational deployment with a probability of approximately 45%. This represents the highest probability scenario because it offers the United States a narrow window to eliminate the systems before they become operational, while avoiding the massive escalation that striking Iranian nuclear facilities would trigger. Here's how this scenario unfolds. Within 48 to 72 hours, American intelligence confirms that the S-400 components are being assembled and integrated at Mehrabad Air Base and potentially secondary sites. Before the systems achieve operational status with trained Iranian crews and active radar emissions, the United States conducts precision strikes using a combination of stealth aircraft and standoff cruise missiles. The strikes target the S-400 components, associated radar systems, and Russian technical personnel if present. The operation is framed as defensive action preventing a destabilizing weapons deployment rather than aggression against Iran. Russian casualties, if any, are described as mercenaries rather than regular military personnel to provide Moscow with escalation off-ramp. Iran conducts limited retaliation through proxy strikes or missile attacks against American bases in Iraq and Syria, but calibrated to demonstrate resistance without triggering massive American response. Russia issues furious condemnations, potentially deploys additional systems to Syria, but ultimately accepts the loss rather than direct confrontation with the United States. This scenario requires precise timing, flawless intelligence on system locations, willingness to accept limited American casualties from Iranian retaliation, and bet that neither Russia nor Iran will choose full-scale escalation over limited tactical defeat. Scenario 3 is the nightmare trajectory, where this spirals into regional war with a probability I'd assess at 25%. This scenario materializes if the United States delays strikes allowing the S-400 to become operational, or if initial strikes fail to destroy the systems completely, or if Russian or Iranian responses to strikes exceed American escalation tolerance. In this scenario, American strikes trigger Iranian retaliation using ballistic missiles against American bases across the Gulf region and potentially against Israeli targets. Israel responds with its own strikes against Iranian nuclear facilities exploiting the chaos. Russia provides real-time intelligence to Iran, enabling more effective targeting of American assets. Iranian proxy forces, including Hezbollah, Iraqi militias, and Houthi forces in Yemen, conduct coordinated attacks across the region. The Strait of Hormuz faces closure either through Iranian mining operations or insurance companies refusing to cover tanker transits. Oil prices spike above $120 per barrel, triggering global economic crisis. American carrier strike groups face saturation attacks from Iranian ballistic and cruise missiles. Within 1 week, we're in a full regional war with hundreds of American casualties, thousands of Iranian casualties, global economic disruption, and no clear path to de-escalation that doesn't involve regime change in Tehran or American withdrawal from the region. Watch for 5 critical indicators over the next 24 to 72 hours that will reveal which scenario is materializing. First, American military asset positioning. If additional strike aircraft deploy to bases in the Gulf region, if the USS Gerald R. Ford Carrier Strike Group, currently in the Mediterranean, receives orders to transit the Suez Canal toward the Red Sea, if B-2 stealth bombers deploy forward to Diego Garcia, offensive operations become significantly more likely. Second, Russian technical personnel movements. If commercial satellite imagery shows Russian military advisors evacuating Tehran, or if charter flights begin moving Russian citizens out of Iran, Moscow possesses intelligence suggesting imminent American strikes. Third, Iranian Revolutionary Guard posture. If Iran begins dispersing mobile missile systems, if naval forces adopt heightened readiness in the Strait of Hormuz, if proxy forces in Iraq and Syria receive activation orders, Tehran is preparing for military confrontation. Fourth, diplomatic communications. If the UN Security Council convenes emergency sessions, if back-channel negotiations intensify through Omani or Qatari mediation, if any party announces talks scheduled in the next 48 hours, diplomatic track remains viable. Fifth, oil market signals. If crude prices spike above $95 per barrel, if tanker insurance rates increase dramatically, if major oil companies begin rerouting shipments away from the Persian Gulf, markets are pricing in significant conflict probability. I'm tracking every development in real time through satellite imagery analysis, military aviation tracking, diplomatic reporting, and intelligence community sources. This situation is evolving hour by hour, and you need to understand what's happening, because the decisions made in the next 72 hours will determine whether we witness the largest Middle East conflict in a generation, or whether diplomatic channels find off-ramps before military confrontation becomes inevitable. Subscribe to this channel right now and turn on all notifications, because when the next development breaks, when strikes are launched or talks announced, when systems go operational or diplomacy succeeds, you will understand it here first with the level of analysis that mainstream media simply cannot provide. Hit that subscribe button. This is not entertainment. This is the most significant military crisis in the Middle East since the United States withdrew from the Iran nuclear deal, and you need to know what happens next. Drop a comment right now. Do you think Trump will strike the S-400 positions before they become operational? Do you think Russia would risk direct confrontation with the United States over these systems? Do you think Iran is deliberately provoking a crisis or genuinely seeking strategic deterrent capability? I read every comment, and I want to hear your analysis of where this is heading. The Russian cargo planes are on the ground in Tehran right now. The systems are being assembled as we speak. The clock is counting down. Thanks for watching.